I've grouped all of my fabric pieces into half square triangle groupings. Here are the half square triangle group 1 pieces. They are going to be the bigger 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch half square triangles. The half square triangle 2 groupings will end up being smaller and trimmed down to 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. I have left the BR or band row pieces where they are right here in their nice stripped groupings. Since these piles are already paired up, I'm going to go ahead and draw a diagonal line along the back side of the lighter color fabric square from each pair. From this grouping, it looks like these fabrics are paired together and that this will be the lighter colored fabric. I will draw a diagonal line along the back side of this fabric and then keep the groupings together when I stack them in preparation for the sewing machine. It is time to take these pairs to the sewing machine where I will place the pairs right sides together and sew a scant seam on both sides of the drawn line. Here's my pile of half square triangle squares that I sewn together, right sides together. That means the front print of the fabrics are facing each other. I've sewn a seam on both sides of the diagonal line that I drew, and the next thing I'm going to do is cut along the line to separate the units into 2 parts. Next, I'm going to take these units to the ironing station to press these half square triangles open. My instructions say to press all seams open, but I personally actually like to press to one side, and that's the darker side, so go with your preference, you won't go wrong either way. Now that I've pressed these half square triangles open, they will need to be trimmed down to 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. In order to do that, you will want to find the marker on your ruler that's 4.5 inches away from the top edge and the side edge of the ruler that you're going to trim along. Also, look to see that the 45-degree diagonal line runs along the seam, and make sure that the 4.5 inch marks fall over the fabric so that you will have room to trim later. Once you've cut along the 2 edges, rotate the unit to trim the other 2 edges. This time, the edges should run along the 4.5 inch mark lines, and then the seam should automatically match the 45-degree angle line. Trim the other 2 edges to complete the half square triangle that is 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. I'm going to do the rest with this pile of half square triangles, and then I'm going to keep this label with the group and make sure I have 4 of each of these half square triangles. In this group, there's one that can be discarded and will not be used in the quilt, so I will save it for a different project, but I will keep these half square triangles together in the same group when I'm done trimming everything. All the concepts that I mentioned here will apply to the half square triangle 2, where you need to trim them down to 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Go ahead and do the same over there too.